Takes in Football, back with another video for you. Excited to dive into my topics this week. Instead of going over what happened in every single game, we're going to be doing something different. Really, what I want to do is go over who I really see as the top contenders, who are some of those pretenders, and what teams are really in trouble this year. So we'll be going through that. Again, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. I'm on my road to my first 100 subscribers. We're at 60, so we will be doing a giveaway. I'm giving away a portable Bluetooth speaker that will allow you to split it into two different speakers, so it's almost like a surround sound sort of feel to it. Again, one of those subscribers will be winning that speaker. I'll be doing that giveaway once I get to my first 100 subscribers. So when you get in here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you like and comment on this chat. Tell me what you think about the content. You know, again, I prompted a question in there. What team is the biggest pretender to you in your opinion? So we'll be going over that. And again, make sure you subscribe to this channel. So we'll give everyone a little bit more time. Also, sorry about my eyes. Was on a farm this weekend, and my allergies are absolutely killing me. So if I look like this, it's because I was on a farm and just got absolutely crushed by pollen, dust, dirt, you name it. So that is why I look like this. But again, we'll be hopping into this video shortly. Again, when you get in here, make sure you comment and chat. Tell me what you think about this past week's games. And I prompted the question, who is the biggest pretender this season so far? All right, so diving into things, let's go ahead and start out with just going over, where we are from an NFL standings perspective. And I'll start out with the AFC, and then we'll go into the NFC. But really, to me, there's probably 10 true contenders, maybe 11 or 12, and we'll get into that. But let's kind of dive into where teams are currently with standing. So in the AFC East, we have the Patriots in first place, who actually did just lose last night to the Patriots, who happen to be in second place. But the Bills, they're 4-1. The Patriots are 3-2. The Dolphins are 1-4, and then we have the only team that hasn't had a single win this season. And let me make sure I confirm that. Yeah, they are the only team without a win this season. The New York Jets are in last place in the NFC East. So we got quite a spectrum in the NFC East. And again, we'll dive more into who are those contenders, pretenders, and which teams are obviously in trouble in the AFC East. In the AFC West, it's actually a little bit more crowded. You have the Chargers that are the Chargers are 3-2. The Broncos are 3-2 as well. The Chiefs are 2-2 and played tonight against the Jaguars. And then you have the Raiders at 1-4, right? When you go into the AFC North, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 3-1. The lone team with a winning record. The Bengals, who started out 2-0 with Joe Burrow, are now at 2-3. So they've dropped a couple in a row recently. You have the Baltimore Ravens, who we'll definitely dive into them. They are 1-4 right now and seemingly don't have a path to any sort of success this season right now. It's actually pretty scary. I'm sure a lot of Ravens fans are not happy right now. They're probably trying to bury their mind in their work today as opposed to thinking about football, which is generally not the case. The Cleveland Browns are also 1-4 in the AFC North. We'll talk about them and what we saw out of Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, they ended up having a much closer game than I think most people expected. So we'll talk about the Browns. But then the AFC South, one of those biggest surprisers from a contender perspective, and again, we'll dive more into this. Indianapolis Colts are 4-1 right now. That is definitely a surprise one. Jacksonville Jaguars, they are 3-1. Again, they play tonight against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans, they've actually won 2 games in a row. They beat the Titans, and then they absolutely crushed the Ravens in Baltimore this past weekend. They are 2-3. And then the Titans actually got their first win this past Sunday and they are now 1-4. So again, that rounds out the AFC, and we'll talk a little bit more about the NFC, and then again we'll dive into who are those contenders, who are those pretenders, and which teams are really in trouble. So in the NFC, we'll start out with the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles, they lost their first game last week or this past weekend, but they are 4-1. The Commanders are 3-2. The Cowboys are 2-2, and on a bye week, and then the New York Giants are 1-4. Right, so that's the NFC East. The NFC West, surprise team to me. I'll say this, and I know they have a solid roster, but based off of purely injuries, the fact that this team is 4-1 is absolutely amazing to me, and it's actually going to tell me like I need to stop hating on them. Probably one of my a bad take of mine, and there's probably going to be many of those, but a bad take was I thought the 49ers were going to have an even worse year this year, purely based off of the injuries and just getting older. But the 49ers, they're 4-1. The Seahawks, they are 3-2. The Rams are 3-2. And then the Cardinals are in fourth place currently in the NFC West, and they are 2-3. Now, the NFC North, very interesting division, obviously pretty packed. The Detroit Lions, they are in first place at 4-1. The Packers, they are in second place right now with a record of 2-1-1. So they have that one tie game against the Dallas Cowboys, and that's really impacting their win-loss record. The Vikings, they are 3-2. So they are technically in third place because they have more losses than the Packers, right? So that tie game, that is going to have a play in seeding and the playoffs. It's going to. And then you have the Bears. The Chicago Bears are 2-2. And to really round out the NFC, to talk a little bit about the NFC South real quick, just to give you the standings before we go into contenders, pretenders, and who's in trouble. The Buccaneers, one of my favorite teams, they are 4-1 right now and had a huge win against the Seattle Seahawks with a game-winning field goal. The Falcons, 2-2. The Panthers, they are 2-3, so they actually picked up another win yesterday. A huge win at home. And then the Saints, Spencer Rattler getting his first win of his career. He is now 1-10 in his career, and the Saints are 1-4 on the season. Congratulations to Spencer Rattler for getting that first win of your career. I know a lot of people are probably like, why are you so excited about that? It's because Spencer Rattler is absolutely elite. Let's just go ahead and say that right now. The guy is proving everyone wrong. Spencer Rattler is super elite. Again, so those are essentially the standings, right? So let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more about where I really see these teams from a contenders, pretenders, and then also who's really in trouble. So. Again, we'll start out with some AFC teams, and then we'll go into the NFC. Really, from the AFC, biggest contender is in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills. And again, I know they lost yesterday. They lost against a divisional rival. It seemed to be the Stephon Diggs, redemption tour, where he actually had a solid game. It seems like they're really starting to get him into the mix from an offensive perspective. The Patriots are, but again, the Bills, they lost to the Patriots last night. I think that's going to be the exception more so than reality. I think this Bills team has a lot of really solid weapons. Now, what I will say that concerns me about this Bills team is their defense. I think their defense has some holes in it. I think their defense has places where you can definitely take advantage of it, and we've seen a couple of good teams do that. From a passing perspective, the Patriots did a really good job of actually, putting up a fair amount of yardage on the Bills last night. Let me pull this up for you real quick. But Drake May, he threw for 273 yards yesterday, right? And another aspect of this is the fact that, again, they really were just focusing on one main weapon, and that was Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs had 10 catches for 146 yards yesterday. So again, they do have the ability to give it up in the passing game, and then also in the run game, they're a little bit light. They don't have the biggest and most stout defensive line. So if they go up against a very run heavy team, that could really amount to some trouble for this Buffalo Bills team. Now, they do have one of the easiest schedules, and again, there really isn't a lot of competition right now in the AFC East. The Patriots, I think they're coming on a little bit more. Like I said, they've gotten a couple wins in a row. I think Mike Vrabel is a really good coach, and I think he has a good way of game planning in order to create an advantage for the Patriots. But right now, it truly is just the Buffalo Bills in that AFC East when it comes to a true contender perspective. Now, when it comes to the AFC West, and we want to talk about contenders, there's really truly two real teams from that perspective right now, and this is subject to change. Right now, the two teams I see as the biggest contenders are the Los Angeles Chargers and then the Denver Broncos. So going into the Chargers a little bit, they did lose yesterday to the Washington Commanders, and this was a home game. So that does concern me a little bit. Jaden Daniels, he had a pretty solid game. He threw for 231 yards, and he had a touchdown. It seemed to be a game where Deebo Samuel really got going. He had 96 yards and a touchdown in the pass game. And so, the Commanders did have a really good game. But to me, the Chargers just have an overall, really solid roster. There's not really a hole at any position group that they have. They have really solid corners. Safety group is great. Great linebackers, defensive line. They're definitely missing Khalil Mack from an edge rushing perspective, but I just think that their defense overall is super solid. And then I've said this so many times, but to me, their wide receiving core is second to none right now. I think Lad McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston is such a solid wide receiving core, and Omarion Hampton is doing well as well. Omarion Hampton. He is a really solid running back for them. He didn't have his best game this past week. He ran for 44 yards on 12 carries, so that's definitely, I would say, on the lower side for him. But again, I do really see this Chargers team as a true contender. And, going more into that, the Broncos, right? The Denver Broncos, they also are a true contender in the NFL. They could really get hot. Talking about the weapons, they have a lot of really solid weapons in Denver. And they are coming off of a big win, beating Philadelphia in Philly, right? I've talked about this Philly team. They just know how to win games. They don't do anything super sexy, super exciting, none of that. But they just find ways to win games. But the Denver Broncos, they went into Philly and they handled business. J.K. Dobbins, I will say this, J.K. Dobbins is one of the best surprises in the NFL this year right now. He is super solid. I did a video on him last week purely because I wanted to talk about a player that's overcome injuries, because seemingly there's just so many injuries right now around the NFL. But J.K. Dobbins being able to run the ball for the Broncos is allowing Bo Nix to be so much more free when it comes to the pass game, because they do have to respect the run when you play against the Broncos. Another aspect about this Broncos team I love is their pass rush. Nick Bonito, to me, looks like one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I'll pull this up really fast just to kind of take a look to see, sack leaders. Yeah, he has 7 sacks on the season, which is 2 more than the next best, right? Those are really solid numbers. If you have 7 sacks 5 games through the season, you're going to be very happy for that. And he just got paid too, so he's making sure that the Broncos got value out of that contract, and he's showing, hey, I was worth every penny that you've given me so far, because 7 sacks, that's truly impressive. Now, there's probably only one team right now that I would say is a contender in the AFC North. And I also might consider them they're really close to being a pretender, in my opinion. But right now, being 4-1, very similar to the Eagles in a couple of ways. They do not have a super sexy offense. They are not just throwing the ball downfield left and right. They're not getting an insane amount of passes or touchdowns. Let me pull this up really fast because I think it's important to kind of talk about this. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they've only scored 96 points so far through the 4 games this season, and they've given up 98, right? So they've actually given up more points than they've actually put up, but they have a 3-1 record. So what that tells you is they have a really solid defense, and they're also taking advantage of every opportunity they get. Like they're not sorry, when they say they're taking advantage of every opportunity, they're scoring and they're taking advantage when they need to. Like in pivotal situations, the Steelers are coming out on top. Like they're not doing anything at a prolific level whatsoever. I mean, putting up 96 points so far through the season is not like a stat to be proud of. Like an example of that, like the Baltimore Ravens, who are 1-4, they've put up 141 points so far, right? Like that might be on the higher end. Like the Bills, 153 points, right? So like just to give you a frame of reference, the Steelers are not putting up a lot of points. Like their offense is not good. And that is what scares me. And that's what tells me this team is a little bit closer to being a pretender than a contender. Because in the grand scheme of things, when you get to the playoffs, you can bank on your defense to a certain extent, but like you need to be able to put up points as an offense if you want to have any shot. Because you're going to be going up against the best offenses and the best defenses in the NFL. So, again, the lack of offense scares me, but their turnover ratio is absolutely insane. The amount of turnovers the Pittsburgh Steelers cause is the biggest reason why they are 3-1 and the top of the AFC North. There's no other reason. You can't put it on Aaron Rodgers. You can't put it on Mike Tomlin. It's the defense as a whole causing turnovers, because if you have the ball more often than not, you're going to win the game. Thank you, John Madden, but like that's just actually the case. So again, Steelers right now I have as a contender, but they are very close to being a pretender for me. But that would be the one team out of the AFC North that I would have, out of the AFC North that I would have as a contender. And then really, an AFC South, there's only one team that's a contender, and this is a team that everyone I think keeps waiting to see the other shoe to drop. But those Indianapolis Colts, they are a real team. They have solid weapons on offense, and they have a stout defense. They've only given up 89 points, but they've also put up 163. Like, think about that differential. That's an insane point differential right there. That is a recipe for being a successful team. Like I said, going back to the Steelers have put up 96 points and have given up 98. And the Colts have put up 163 points and then given up 89 points. Like that is a huge differential. While I'm saying all this, I'm actually kind of going on to the other side and saying, you know what? I'm taking the Steelers out of the contender list. I think they'll make the playoffs purely based off of process of elimination, but I think they're going to be a 1 week and out team. I think they're going to play in the wild card or divisional round if they somehow get a bye, and then they're going to lose that first week because again, like you can't win games, especially in the playoffs, the way that the Steelers are winning games. You can't just rely on getting turnover after turnover. It's just not a sustainable statistic. Like you can't game plan for turnovers. You just can't. That's not something we're like, oh well, we'll get 3 interceptions today, so don't worry about the offense not putting up a lot of points or like getting a lot of yards. Like we'll just put our team in good field position. Like you just can't bank on that. So again, I'm already making a change in this. I'm moving the Steelers to the pretenders list. And again, the Colts, they are a true contender. Jonathan Taylor, he is a fantastic running back. He is still leading the NFL in rushing yards with 480. Tyler Warren is leading this team in receiving right now, and he's seemingly looking like a great first round pick for the Colts. Like they are just making good decision after good decision. He has 307 yards so far this season, and he's actually top 20 like in the receiver list, and that's a rookie tight end right there. So again, huge pickup by getting Tyler Warren in the draft this year. Like that has probably helped Daniel Jones leaps and bounds. Like a quarterback's best friend is a tight end, and having Tyler Warren on that offense has done huge factors for this Colts offense because it opens up the run game because you have to respect the pass game more. They also do have Michael Pittman. Adonai Mitchell, he's a little bit too inconsistent for me, but still, I just think the Colts have a really solid team, and I think they are a true contender. Now, going over to the NFC, let's talk about the NFC contenders. For me, I think there's a couple teams that we can put on this list from the the NFC East. I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, right, and then also the Washington Commanders. And let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles first. So, for me, again, this team just knows how to win. Like they have the makeup, they have the culture, they understand what they need to do in order to win games. They don't do it the same way every single week. Generally, they are able to adjust pretty well. Jalen Hurts in games where he has proven that he can, throw the ball. They did lose this past week. Again, don't forget that. They lost to the Broncos. But, Jalen Hurts still put up pretty solid numbers in that game. He threw for 280 yards and had 2 touchdowns. His top receiver was Devontae Smith. And, I know we've been talking about A.J. Brown's drama. A.J. Brown had a fair amount of targets. He had 8 targets. He had 5 catches, though, for 43 yards. So when you look at this team, the other thing that scares me that I think we do need to talk about is the fact that Saquon Barkley, he's not having a good year right now. Like Saquon Barkley, this is probably the worst year he's had in quite some time. Like I'll pull up his stats really quick. He's got 263 yards on the season right now. That's on, he's 4th in carries with 83, and he's 22nd in yards right now with 267. So he's averaging 3.2 yards a carry. That is not Saquon Barkley numbers. We're talking about a guy that was rated the number 1 player in the NFL by NFL players. And I'm not saying he's having a terrible year, but he's definitely having a down year. Now, I know we're talking about them as contenders, so I'll go back to it. I love their offensive line. Like, the Eagles' offensive line is just super solid. Like, they have an extremely veteran, well-cultured offensive line that just do a great job of protecting Jalen Hurts. And obviously, they have perfected the tush push as well. But, that their offensive line is a huge factor. Their defensive line, Jalen Carter is a huge factor and a huge weapon for this team, as is Jordan Davis. But they really win games a lot of times in the trenches. It's either stopping the run or it's opening up the run game for themselves, or protecting Jalen Hurts in order for him to pass the ball. They have great linebackers. Their secondary is solid. So again, the Eagles, to me, definitely one of the top contenders when it comes to the NFC. Now the Commanders, they're a different team from the Eagles in a couple different ways. They have a pretty solid line, right? Like they don't have the best line, but they have a pretty decent offensive and defensive line. Their biggest strength though are in their weapons. And right now they're kind of being harnessed by the fact that they've had to deal with injuries to those weapons, right? Terry McLaurin, he hasn't been out there the last couple of games, but I think that's actually allowed Deebo Samuel to get more in sync with this offense. Jaden Daniels, he missed a couple games and now he's back and seemingly is finding ways to win games again for them. They beat the Chargers in LA. That's a huge victory. That is not an easy win whatsoever. And so having wins like that is what makes this team a true contender. Like going on the road and being a team like the Chargers is what separates a good team from a bad team. It truly does. And so again, Commanders, I could actually see being, a team that, could potentially even overcome the Eagles if they get hot and become the NFC East first place team. I really could actually see that coming. Now going into the NFC West, when it comes to contenders, I'm kind of shocked by saying this, and again, I alluded to this earlier, but bad take on my part was saying that the 49ers were going to have a terrible season this year. They are doing everything in their possible, I wish Jim Harbaugh was still there, because I wish the Ravens would just call and be like, hey, how are you dealing with all these injuries and still winning? Because that tells you a lot about a culture and about the makeup of the team, is the fact that they have so many players that are injured and they still win games. Like Mac Jones, he stepped in for Brock Purdy and didn't skip a beat this past Thursday. Like they had that Thursday night game. And let me pull this up really fast. They beat the Rams in LA, just like the Commanders beat the Chargers. And Mac Jones threw for 342 yards and had 2 touchdowns in that game. Like those are numbers where you're just like, why did we pay Brock Purdy? Why did we do that? Like Christian McCaffrey didn't have some insane game on the ground. He had 57 yards. He also did add another 82 in the air. Kendrick Bourne came out of nowhere with 10 catches for 142 yards in this game as well. But this team just finds players to fill in for injured players, and they find ways to win games. These aren't easy games. It's not like the 49ers have had just easy matchup after easy matchup. They're beating tough teams. The Rams are not an easy team to beat. And right now, they are the 49ers are in first place in the NFC West. And if you were to tell me that 5 weeks ago before the season started, I would have told you you're crazy. No chance I would have believed that this is the case. But I think it says a lot about Shanahan as a head coach. And I think there's overall the culture, right? Next man up mentality is super real in San Francisco, because they're doing it with so many different players right now. And you have to give your props to the 49ers from that perspective. Now, let's dive over to the NFC North, because I don't have other contenders in the NFC West right now. But to me, the Detroit Lions are the best team, I think, actually right now in the NFL. I'll just go ahead and say that. I was saying in the NFC for quite some time, but the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL right now. Their offense is humming. Their defense is dangerous. Aiden Hutchinson knows how to get after the quarterback, and they're just solid, all around on the defensive side. The Detroit Lions, I think, in my opinion, are the best team in the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So, with that being said, I mean, the only other team I really have as a contender in the NFC West, the NFC North is the Green Bay Packers. And they've actually fallen off a little bit for me. And the biggest reason why they've fallen off is their defense. They've given up a lot of points the last couple weeks, and they were in games where I didn't expect them to. When they gave up 40 points to the Cowboys, I did not expect that to happen, especially without CeeDee Lamb. Right? That was Dak Prescott essentially just throwing to George Pickens all game, and they put up an insane amount of points on this Green Bay Packers defense. Javonte Williams also had a really solid game in that game, right? And so this Packers defense, they do have some challenges. They do have some gaps. I'm not exactly sure what the issue and what changed, or if teams just started to be able to game plan better to how the Packers attack offenses. But the first 2 games and then the last 2 games, there's just a big difference in how the Packers have performed, especially on the defensive side. So I still have them as a contender, but I wouldn't necessarily put them as like an NFC championship team right now. I really wouldn't. This next team I'm actually going to talk about, I will say I actually have as the other NFC championship contender. And some people might think I'm crazy for this, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are a true contender. They are a legitimate team that I think has a really good shot at becoming a Super Bowl appearance team for the NFC. Like, I think they are a team that could compete with the Detroit Lions, especially on the offensive side. And they are dealing with a fair amount of injuries as well. They don't even have Mike Evans out there, but Emeka Egbuka. I've been saying this. I knew this was going to be the case, and it has proven to be the case. Emeka Egbuka is the best rookie wide receiver in that class. He is fourth in the NFL right now in receiving yards with 445. He's behind Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Justin Jefferson. Like, those are the three people that Emeka Egbuka is behind. He's ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's got 5 touchdowns. So he's got 445 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like, Emeka Egbuka is... don't even need to talk about him as one of the best rookie receivers. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. And they don't even have Mike Evans out there. Wait till Mike Evans is out there. They're going to have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Emeka Egbuka out there. They haven't had that yet this season. They have Chris Godwin back, but they haven't had all three out there at the same time. And Baker Mayfield is just slinging that ball around the field like no one's business. Like, let me pull up his stats. Like, Baker Mayfield, he's fourth in the NFL right now in passing. He's over 1,200 yards. He has 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. You know, those are... I'm sorry, he has 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's even better. Like, those are insane numbers. Like, those are numbers... Those are MVP caliber numbers right there. I would say the only quarterback that might be having a better performance than him is Matt Stafford, who has 1,500 yards, and he has 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Like, that's really who Baker Mayfield is competing for right now for the best quarterback in the NFL this season. So, again, to me, the Buccaneers, they truly are a team that could be an NFC championship team, and they could be the team out of the NFC that goes to the Super Bowl. They're finding ways to win games in tight windows. Like, they're coming back and they're hitting game-winning field goal after game-winning field goal in these tough matchups. Like, they beat the Seahawks this past week in a true, like, showdown battle. Like, again, this team is the real deal. Let me pull up the stats. It was 38-35. And again, like, Baker Mayfield, he threw for 379 yards. Sam Darnold threw for 341. Like, this was a back and forth game. Like, they just kept going. There's no rushing game for the Bucs. I will say that. Their top rusher, Rachaad White, had 41 yards. Like, that's not going to cut it. They need to figure that out a little bit more. But Emeka Egbuka had 163 yards and a touchdown in this game. So again, this Buccaneers team, they are the real deal. What do you guys think of the list so far? Any contenders I've had in there that you would say was a terrible take? Again, while you're in here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm on my road to my first 100 subscribers. It really helps me out. It's free for you to do. So while you're in here, again, make sure you also comment. Tell me about, who you see as the biggest pretender so far this year. We'll go ahead and dive into that. So let's get into some pretenders. I've already kind of alluded to the fact that the Steelers are a pretender, and that essentially says there's not a single good team in the AFC North. So let's talk about some other pretenders. Los Angeles Rams. I don't understand why they're 3-2. They've lost two really close games. First to the 49ers, the second to the Eagles. And the reason why I have them as a pretender is because, in my opinion, they gave these games up. I can't put my finger on it quite yet, but it reminds me a lot about how the Ravens are at times, where they get into comfortable positions and then they give up the win. And right now, I just feel like that's what the Rams are doing. They're missing key field goals. They're getting field goals blocked. They're fumbling the ball in pivotal situations. There's just so many different ways that the Rams are finding ways to give up wins. And so that reason and that reason only is why I have to put the Los Angeles Rams in the pretenders category. Like, you can't find ways to lose games. Like, if a team outplays you, that's what it is. But when you outplay yourself and you're the reason why you lose games, like, I just can't have you as a contender. I just can't put you into that bracket because contenders don't do that. Like, contenders don't lose games on their own. And the Rams, again, they're just one of those teams. Like, against the 49ers. Like, the fact that game went into overtime and Mac Jones was able to find a way to beat the Los Angeles Rams, to beat Matt Stafford, absolutely crazy. Like, that should not happen. That is the type of game that, again, turns you from a contender to a pretender. There is no other way to describe it. But to me, again, Rams, they are definitely a pretender. They have a solid record, but to me, they have a lot of work to do. Next on this list, when it comes to pretenders, and they are getting a little bit hot, so I will say that, but it's the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, they're just not quite there yet, in my opinion, and I think the biggest aspect to me for that is the fact that they just don't have a run game. Like, you need to have a successful run game in order to be like a true contender, and it's just not there right now for the New England Patriots. And they just don't also have the weapons from a receiving perspective to be able to make up for that either. Like, that's like a big part of this. Stephon Diggs, I mentioned it before, he's starting to come on for them. He's starting to get more acclimated to this offense. But from a weapons perspective, he's really basically it. Like, yeah, they do have some other decent, I'll call them decent targets, but they're really not the answer. Right, like Mac Hollins is never going to be like a true wide receiver too. And so, again, it's basically Stephon Diggs. Demario Douglas, I couldn't even tell you what's going on with Demario Douglas. Is Demario Douglas injured? Let me just pull this up really fast, because that's one of those players where it's like, what happened to this guy? So, yeah, no, Demario Douglas is playing. Like, he had 3 targets, 2 catches for 17 yards. Demario Douglas was one of Drake May's top targets last year. And he's only gotten 7 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown this year. Like, I can't tell you what happened with Demario Douglas. But again, like, just going back to this, like, the reason why I'm bringing this up is they just don't have a lot of good weapons. Like, Kayshon Boutte, like, is it Boutte? I think it's how you say his name. Like, he's not a wide receiver too either. Like, Demario Douglas should be that wide receiver too, or he should be like one of those key slot guys. But he's fallen off for some reason. I'm not sure if he's dealing with some sort of injury and like they're not necessarily talking about it. But again, they're a pretender because they don't have like a really scary offense, in my opinion. And their defense, they have gaps as well, right? So like I was kind of talking about like points for, points against. When it comes to the Patriots, they have put up 125 points, but they've also given up 101, right? So they've put up more points than they've given up, but at the same time, it's just not like a true contender level. It's not to the level of like, hey, this is a real team. They can beat you both on offense and on defense. It's just not quite there yet for me. So again, I do have the Patriots as one of my pretenders. Another pretender, and this might not be popular, and I know they've won the last 2 games. One of which was, they beat the Ravens, who right now I might actually have as one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like if you were to do like a power rankings, I would probably have them like third or fourth to last right now. But the Chiefs, the Chiefs to me, they don't have a prolific enough offense anymore. It's essentially Patrick Mahomes like making magical play after magical play, but they essentially have three of the same receiver right now. It's Thornton, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy. Like they're all the same receiver. Like what is the difference between those three receivers for the Chiefs? Like they're essentially the same person. Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy are the exact same player. And then again, they picked up, or they have Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan Thornton, same player. Like those three receivers are the same player. Like they don't have the diversity right now. I think adding Rashid Rice will help with that. Rashid Rice is a different style receiver, and maybe I see more out of this offense to believe that they are like a true scary team. But their run game also is just not there right now. Like their run game is not prolific. Their leading rusher is Patrick Mahomes with 130 yards. Isaiah Pacheco has 127. Right? Like having Patrick Mahomes as your leading rusher, it does not make you a contender. Patrick Mahomes is getting older, and he's not a running quarterback. He's doing it because he has to. And so that says a lot about this offense. And so again, purely because of this offense, I have them as a pretender. Their defense is their best attribute. This Chiefs defense, it's really solid. Like I will say that. I'm not going to take that away from this Chiefs team. Like they are actually a very legitimate offense, or defense, I should say. So we'll kind of see what happens with them. Travis Kelce, you're going to have to step it up. You're at like 45 yards a game right now. Like they're going to need to have more out of you. But again, I actually have the Chiefs as one of my pretenders. Another pretender, and this is purely because of their quarterback. I'll just say it now. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like Trevor Lawrence for some really weird reason, but I've also decided from a personal perspective, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he is a top quarterback in the NFL. He's just not. Like he's not someone that is going to win you a game. The biggest blessing right now to this team is actually their head coach Cohn, because he found out and realized like Travis Etienne is a really good running back. Like Travis Etienne should be our RB1, and Cohen realized that, and that's been the biggest blessing to this Jaguars offense is the fact that Travis Etienne is a really good running back for them. Now, again, the reason why they're a pretender, Trevor Lawrence, like, you just keep giving up the ball too much, in my opinion. Like he just makes such dumb passes sometimes, and he throws the ball into such weird areas that you're just like, why was this even an idea? Like what made you think that this was a good idea? And so again, I have the Jaguars as one of my pretenders. Now, when it comes to other pretenders in the NFC especially, I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys I have on this list because of the fact that their defense just cannot stop teams. Like their defense is a liability. Like Dak Prescott, you're playing well. Like you're having a great year this year. George Pickens, you are going to make this offense extremely dynamic, especially when CeeDee Lamb comes back. And again, they've figured out the run game with Javonte Williams. So the Cowboys offense is actually super potent. They're a very legitimate offense, but their defense really scares me. Like the amount of points that they give up, it's just not sustainable to be a true contender in the NFL. I'll go back to the points for and the points given up and the points for, right? I think that's a really telling situation. They've put up 151 points, but they've also given up 154, right? So they've had more points against them than what they've put up. And again, you are not a true contender if that is the case. Like you have to have the point differential, the point ratio. Like that's the true marker of a team. Like wins and losses is a huge aspect of that, right? That's number one. But right after that, it's how many points do you give up and how many points are you scoring? Because that's like the makeup to how you determine if you're a good team and if you're winning games. And they're 2-2-1, but they have given up 154 points, and that's just not sustainable. So again, I do have the Cowboys as one of my contenders or pretenders. Another pretender right now for me is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, they look good in so many different ways, but they're also just finding ways to lose games like they did against the Buccaneers at home. Right? Like they had a really good win against the Steelers, but the Seahawks in general, like some of the games that they've lost, like they lost against the Buccaneers, they lost against the 49ers. It's just games where like I think they should be able to beat the 49ers. Like I think they should be able to beat the Buccaneers at home. Like you have a solid team. Sam Darnold is proving that he belongs as the starting quarterback. You just can't lose these games. And so again, like when you lose games like that, I just have to have you as a pretender. Because they're their points for and the points against, like that looks in their favor, but they're 3-2 right now, and in my opinion, they should be undefeated. And I'm not saying that because I think they're like the best team in the NFL, but the way they've played, similar to, similar to, I guess you could say the Cowboys, like they just find ways to lose games sometimes, and so. Again, I do have to put the Seahawks as a pretender. Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings are an interesting team this year. I think there was a lot of confidence going into this season. I think there was a lot of people that were expecting J.J. McCarthy to really just get up and going right away. To me, I think quarterback play is their biggest issue. Carson Wentz, he's won them a game. J.J. McCarthy's obviously won them a game. But, like, it's just not consistent enough. Like, even if J.J. McCarthy returns, the NFC North is scary enough and tough enough that, like, I just don't have faith that the Vikings are actually going to be, like, a true playoff team right now. Like, the NFC is actually a lot more crowded than the AFC. And I think the Vikings are one of those teams that is going to take a loss. They're going to be the odd man out when it comes to the playoffs because of how good these other teams are, and also because of their quarterback play. Like they really need to pick that up. And so I do have the Vikings as a pretender. Falcons, you are my last pretender team. I think the Falcons, I just don't trust Michael Penix. I don't think Michael Penix is like an elite quarterback. I don't think he has the ability to become an elite quarterback. I think he'll be good. Like I think he'll be he'll be a solid quarterback, but I wouldn't put him at the level of what like Kirk Cousins could do. Like I'm not saying start Kirk Cousins, but like I think if you were to match them up at the same time in their careers, like I think Kirk Cousins would be starting over Michael Penix, right? If you're putting Kirk Cousins year 2 against Michael Penix year 2, like Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback from that perspective. And so again, the quarterback play for the Falcons scares me. Their defense is solid enough, but again, it's just to me they're not a good enough team in so many different ways to consider them to be a contender. I think they're going to be outside of the playoffs, and I think that they're going to be a team that is probably going to be looking at and reevaluating, and maybe not next year, but the year after that, whether or not it's worth it to keep someone like a Penix. Let's talk about these teams that are in trouble. First one on this list, the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, they just keep finding ways to lose games. Like, they truly do. Like, the Miami Dolphins, the way they've played some of these games, you'd be like, wow, how are they 1-4? And a big reason for that is their defense. Like they give up way too many points. Like they've given up 145 points so far this year. And so you're not going to be able to win games when you give up that many points. Like they're just the other aspect of this is just the fact that they just not have a cohesive team. Again, let me look at these scores. Like it's pretty scary or pretty crazy when you look at the Dolphins and how they've lost some of these games. Let me pull this up really fast. So they lost to the Carolina Panthers this week, which again, reason number one, they're in trouble. Like if you lose to the Carolina Panthers, you are in trouble. Newsflash. So they lost to the Colts. They got trounced by the Colts week 1, 33-8. They lost to the Patriots 33-27. They lost to the Bills 31-21. That game was a lot closer than it really seemed. They beat the Jets, who are 0-5, 27-21, and then they lost to the Panthers 27-24. And again, this is just a team that I just don't like. I don't like and I don't trust Mike McDaniel. I used to really like him. He was one of those guys that I find really entertaining, really funny, but that's only cool as long as you're winning. Right? It's fun to have like that cool uncle, that cool coach, whatever, until you realize like you need them to be like a head coach. Right? You're like, hey, like I need you to be serious. Like we need to figure this out. Right? And I just don't think they have that. And Tyreek Hill, with that injury, that's just that's a huge weapon for them to lose for the year. Like, I just don't see a huge path for them to have more than 4, 5, 6 wins tops this season. Like, I think looking at their schedule, I think they'll be able to pull out a win either between the Browns and the Falcons. Probably be able to beat a team like the Saints and the Jets, and then maybe the Bengals, right? Like those are the games where they have like a legitimate shot at winning those games. The rest of their games are really tough. And so again, I just don't see them having more than, 4 or 5 wins at the end of the season. The next team I have in trouble it's probably the team that's in the most trouble right now. It's the New York Jets. The New York Jets, I'm curious to see what the direction is of this team. They made some big moves this offseason with re-signing Sauce Gardner, signing Garrett Wilson to an extension as well. Like it seemed like they're really investing in their young core. But at the same time, it's like you have Justin Fields as your quarterback. Besides when he played against the Steelers and seemingly his like revenge game, like, Justin Fields has not looked good out there. Your backup didn't do much as well in the short period of time that he played. And so again, like the Jets to me, like they're definitely the team that I would say is probably in the most amount of trouble. Justin Fields, he's just, I don't know where to place him, but to me, he is one of those guys that when things are good, he's amazing. But as soon as something doesn't go right, I feel like he kind of crumbles. And I feel like he's sort of been like that his entire career. Like even in college, when things got tough, he transferred, right? And so I just don't trust Justin Fields. They have so many things they need to work on, especially on the offensive side, which is crazy because like Garrett Wilson is someone that I think is spectacular, and same thing with Breece Hall, but they just can't seem to be able to put it all together. So they're definitely a team that I have as in huge trouble. The team that's probably the most surprising on this list, and I'll spend some time on this one just purely because personal reasons, and also it's probably the most shocking one. It's the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, we've talked about points for and points given up. The Baltimore Ravens, I think this is the stat that's most telling. They've put up 141 points. Right? So that's a fair amount of points to be putting up. But they've also given up 177 points in 5 games. That is insane. Like the amount of points that this Ravens defense is giving up, and given up against teams like the Texans, is just absolutely crazy. Like they made the Kansas City Chiefs offense look like the Kansas City Chiefs offense of like 2021. Like they really did. And again, I said to you guys, like, I have the Chiefs as a pretender because I don't think their offense is that good. Just the Ravens are just that bad right now. Like, they look lost. They look like a bunch of like hurt, sick puppies that like can't find their home. That like they just look so lost. They don't have any confidence. I don't think there's a good leader on that team. I think that's the biggest issue is if you look at their leadership, generally it's Roquan Smith. There's something going on there. That like I don't know what it is, but there is something going on with Roquan Smith and this Ravens team. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'm not going to go into some crazy conspiracy mode, but like for some reason, I just feel like there's a disconnect between Roquan Smith and the rest of this Ravens roster. I don't know if it's just they don't have buy-in and believe in him or what it is, but from a communication perspective, game plan perspective, it like their defense is just so bad. Like I don't even know if it makes sense to put it on like coaches or players. I think it's honestly both. I think you look at this team and I think coaches need to look at themselves in the mirror and I think players need to look at themselves in the mirror and just realize like we are not as nearly as good as we thought. Like this was a team that was projected to be in the Super Bowl. They had the highest odds in the NFL to make the Super Bowl, and they're 1-4. And again, they got completely demolished by the Texans, who are a garbage team. Like the Texans are not a good team. But CJ Stroud put up 244 yards and 4 touchdowns against this team. Derrick Henry, he hasn't had a productive game since week 1. Like Derrick, and I'm not saying it's his fault. I mean, he did have 15 carries in this game, but for 33 yards. Like that's terrible numbers. Cooper Rush shouldn't be a quarterback in the NFL. Shouldn't even be a backup quarterback in the NFL. 179 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions against the Houston Texans. Like get Cooper Rush off that field, please. Like that is terrible. He looks terrible in the preseason. Like, what made you think this was going to work in the regular season? Like, I know you weren't planning on Lamar Jackson getting injured, but this is where we are. And Cooper Rush is not the answer. He's not even a fill-in. Like, you should have Derrick Henry just playing wildcat back there. Like, you truly should. That's how bad this team is. And so, again, like, this is a team that could get blown up at the end of the season. Like, I will say that. Like, John Harbaugh might be gone. There might be some really big names that you no longer see as a Baltimore Raven, and Roquan Smith is one of those guys I'm talking about. Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey. They have so many of these older veteran guys that are not performing at the level they need them to perform at. And that's a huge reason why they're 1-4. And I think a big aspect of that is there's something going on. Someone hooked up with someone's wife. I don't know what it is, but like something really bad happened in Baltimore, and like we're watching it because you should not be 1-4 with the Cleveland Browns, who is another team that is obviously in trouble. The rest of this AFC North, besides the Steelers, who I have as a pretender, the AFC North Bengals. In trouble, right? They cannot win a game without Joe Burrow. Jake Browning looked better this week. You know, Jamar Chase, he really got it going, but they still lost. They're now 2-3. They started out 2-0. So they're on a 3-game losing streak, just like the Baltimore Ravens. And so they're a team that I think are just in big trouble, and they're going to have to figure out what to do about the fact that they can't keep Joe Burrow healthy. Their offensive line, again, is Swiss cheese. Their defense is terrible. The Cleveland Browns, we don't have to go too much into it. It's very obvious to me. They're not a good team. They lost to the Minnesota Vikings this past week. Carson Wentz had like an okay game. Dylan Gabriel looked more serviceable than I expected. I will say that. He went 19 for 33. He had 190 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like those are big numbers. I like Quinshon Judkins, 23 carries for 110 yards. You know, they do have maybe some solid hope from like a younger perspective. Their offensive line is getting older. Myles Garrett is essentially their defense. They do need more offensive weapons. I will say that. Jerry Jeudy is not the answer at wide receiver 1. That is a very obvious answer. Is Jerry Jeudy is not a clear cut wide receiver one. They could definitely use some more weapons, and then they just need a couple more. I would say they need to solidify that offensive line, which is getting much older. That offensive line has been together for a while now, so you definitely need to work on that if you want to be a team that will become a contender anytime soon. If you're the Cleveland Browns. Couple other teams I have on this in trouble list. Tennessee Titans I have to talk about just purely because I know they got their first win this week. The Tennessee Titans just don't look like an NFL team in my opinion. Like when I watch the Tennessee Titans, I feel like I'm watching like a preseason game. I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know how else to say it. Like they beat the Cardinals, but like the Cardinals, I also don't have as like a legitimate team this year. Cam Ward, 265 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception in this game. They ran for 78 yards. Like Calvin Ridley finally showed that he deserves to still be in the NFL. He had 131 yards, but this is just not a good team. The Cardinals are just bad right now as well. Losing James Conner was a huge hit for this Cardinals team. But, again, the Titans definitely in huge trouble. But that's really all I wanted to cover today. Anyone else? Anyone have contenders, pretenders, teams that are in trouble that they want to talk about? Because to me, those are the biggest teams that are in trouble. There's some teams that are on the borderline. The New Orleans Saints I have as a in trouble bracket. But again, what I will say is Spencer Rattler, that guy is proving he deserves to be an NFL quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind Spencer Rattler has proven to me that he belongs in the NFL. He has 990 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception so far this year. He has a 61%, he has a, let's see what his completion percentage. 67% completion percentage this year. Like, those are great numbers. It's just the rest of this Saints team is bad. Again, I know they beat the Giants this weekend, but I'm not sure how many more games they'll win this week. Ashton, what do you got? Over under 4 wins for the Saints this week. What do you have for that? He didn't answer, so we're gonna go with under 4 wins for the Saints this year. But still, I think the fact that Rattler's looking like a game manager out there is a huge sign for the Saints. They have to be at a minimum happy about that. I would actually say his performance is better than the last team I'll talk about, which is the Carolina Panthers. Like the Carolina Panthers are in real trouble. Like they won this week as well, but that was not a game where you could look at it and say like, oh, this is like repeatable success. That's like the best way to kind of put it. Like I just don't see this Carolina Panthers team, being able to play the same way they played against the Miami Dolphins and win more games like that. Rico Dowdle, I will say, like the fact that he had 260 yards on the rushing is insane to me. Like Rico Dowdle hasn't done anything of significance in his career basically besides this game. Like, you have to be really happy with that. But Ted McMillan, he's still struggling to get into the end zone. Bryce Young, he's not the answer. I think this is the last year we see Bryce Young as a starter. I think they're going to end up giving someone else a shot because he's not an NFL quarterback. This is year 3. Yeah, it's year 3. It's like it feels like year 4 sometimes, but yeah, this is year 3. He's just not progressing. He's just not the answer for them. So they're the last team I have as like in trouble. But if there's nothing else to cover, no comments in chat, I'll let everyone go. I do appreciate everyone's time again today. Thank you again for watching. This is Bad Takes with Bad Takes in Football, signing out.